let's go. Hopefully you can hear us. The 3,000 people in chat, or Mel, can you hear me? And hopefully you can hear the players as well. You can hear. Right, Mel, at the minute, I don't know if it's accurate, but it says there's only you watching, so you've got to come up with about 30 questions. Grace as well, we've got 2. Here we go. Right, so welcome to... Oh, I'm going to put on Sirenscape that we use for all our background music. And I'm going to have some cheeky neon pub life music going on in the background that the players can't hear. That, you know.
It really sucks that we can't hear it.
Just watch it afterwards. It looks good on the YouTube as well.
It's like he had a canned answer.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
In a quiet corner. How loud's that? Oh, we don't want that. On the dance floor. Oh, shit!
Well, we started strong there with an ooh shit.
I've turned it down because I think I just killed all the all the people watching. So Grace and Mel. Right. So welcome to Heavyweight Gaming. We play lots of tabletop normally. What?
We've got Deluna in as well.
Oh yeah, Angela Luna. Hello. Yeah. So welcome to Heavyweight Gaming. We normally play Carbon 2185 on a Thursday, but because of real life adulting, we are not. So we're going to do a bit of a Q&A. So basically, we're going to talk to each other, because why not? We only ever do it on a Thursdays, pretend characters. You lot, if you've got questions about the setting, the players, the future of the setting, anything like that, anything that you wish to ask about Thursday's Cyberpunk game, please ask. If you've got anything outside of Thursday's Cyberpunk game, I'm sure this lot will try and answer it. The channel, specifically on a Thursday, sponsored by Dragon Turtle Games themselves, who are the creators of Carbon 2185. They are giving, they will always give a 10% discount to anyone who uses their web store and uses the code WAITE, W-A-I-T-E. So you can jump on there, grab some stuff and get 10% off. It doesn't work on pre-order, although I don't know what their pre-order state is at the moment, so have a look at that. What I do know is if you look in the top left-hand corner on your screen, you will see Terminal Overdrive, which is a Kickstarter that is about to go live tomorrow, so the 16th. I'm going to try this.
1900 is the launch event, is it?
1900. Boom, if you follow that, let's see if that works. It should take you to a bit of a Kickstarter preview, which is the same link that you can use for when it's live. You can also click on notify me on launch. There's currently just sort of 300 people following it, waiting for the launch. When they last did their Kickstarter, they smashed everything within a day. So yeah, so we're going to spend the next hour, say. So between 9 and half 9 we'll wrap up. So yeah, we'll take it. Oh, hey, chat are already asking stuff. It's Mel. Okay, for those who play /DM both D&D and Carbon, what are the main differences between the two, and what do you enjoy most about Carbon? Ooh,
okay.
Right, so Rob, I know
Yes.
you do both.
I do both.
Main differences: guns.
Not really. Oh, neither of my characters have got them. From a playing point of view, it's gameplay-wise, it feels pretty samey in terms of the actual mechanics of combat. I think the RP element and the exploratory element comes down to the DM more than the system. The reason I prefer playing Carbon, but the reason I enjoy playing Carbon is because I'm so familiar with D&D as a DM. So for me, with Carbon, I don't know what the NPCs are like. I don't know what homebrew stuff AD is going to throw at us. I don't know what creatures do, and I don't know the kind of balance of what's going to be like in D&D. Even if I try and avoid metagaming, in the back of my head, I know roughly how hard this encounter is roughly going to be. I know, how strong a warlock's going to be. I know how strong a mage is going to be. Whereas in this, Jean rocks up as a medic. I have no idea what his level is compared to stuff. It's all new, and that newness makes it more exciting as a player.
Fair enough.
That, and from the exploring point of view in the narrative, with D&D, like, there's only so much interest you can put into like a medieval or a high fantasy city or a town. It's all going to be either farming, you're going to have your tavern, you're going to have your blacksmith, you're going to have your stables. Even if you make them interesting and dynamic, you still have them. In Carbon, you've got modern structures. You've got a lot more interesting office blocks, train stations, things like police are going to be very different than a standing militia or a town guard. Emergency services exist, hospitals exist. So it's quite nice to have a more modern setting, because I think we can roleplay more off of it and we can make more assumptions about the world.
Reality of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like in D&D, nothing is that you can't assume anything, right? Like there could be a wizard anywhere, or it could be magic, and it's a little bit more free flow. This, we go to a train station, we already know roughly what to expect, which I think helps that RP element.
Definitely helps the descriptions. You're in a train station. Done. If you're, I said new to DMing in D&D 5th Ed?
Yeah, relatively new. Yeah, only been doing it about a month and a half. Yeah.
How are you finding the cross with D&D? Because you play quite a lot as well, don't you?
Yeah, I play quite a lot. I mean, the main difference I found with playing is that in the Cyberpunk universe, all the NPCs seem to be from Yorkshire.
What? If you play the fantasy universe, they're all from Yorkshire as well. Yorkshire.
No, it's. I think one of the main differences for me is I do like the science element. Right, a lot of it's about the setting. I mean, obviously the mechanics for this are very similar, which makes it easier between the two. But it is the setting. I love the setting, the setting, and doing something completely different in that concept. I like the fact that there isn't that healing's not like magic either. It's it's mechanical, it's scientific based, and it's actually a bit more straightforward in Cyberpunk or in Carbon than it is in D&D. I think it's like where you stand with healing, whereas like in D&D I found like you got to go and get potions or stuff like that, and it's kind of like you can't just put a plaster on it and make people better, which you can in Carbon.
Nanites, baby, nanites.
Yeah, but even medicine check in Carbon is more powerful than healing someone in D&D. So I like that. I find that more realistic. I think for me, healing in D&D is one of the worst parts of the game.
Just to jump in on that, the healing side of it. Yeah, like Carbon feels more dangerous. I think D&D, for those not familiar with like the 4 tiers of D&D play, you've got like local hero 1 to 5, mid game 5 to 11, world savior 11 to 15, and universe savior 15 to 20. Because most people agrees that the sweet spot for D&D is the second part, tier 2, between levels 5 and 11. It's why a lot of pre-published campaigns go up to 11, and 1 and 5 can feel a bit stale, or you don't have a lot of toys to play with. Because Carbon doesn't go past level 10, you don't have that epic level play, you don't have that world-changing capability, which means you always feel vulnerable. You don't just get to level 12, you haven't got a cleric just throwing resurrects out like a bag of Skittles.
You just need a bigger gun.
Yeah, like I think that's both a good thing and a bad thing for the game. I think for those people looking for a big, epic, crazy world-ending powers, you're not going to find that with Carbon, but you will find a much more grounded system to kind of keep things feeling dangerous. Like, gunshots are always going to be dangerous. Like, explosions and things are going to be dangerous because you can't just have your wizard teleport you 50 feet away or build a wall or plan a shift to a different world. You don't have that. And to tie that into the RP element, you can relate to things like if the police roll up, you normally know what happens if you piss them off. If you pull a gun out, you know how it's going to end badly for you. Whereas in a fantasy world, you don't know how guards are going to react because you haven't got something that dangerous. You haven't got a real world analog to it.
No. James?
Sure you want me to open up this can of worms?
As long as you stay more on Cyberpunk than D&D, then yeah.
Okay, so I've got 50 minutes to sponge why I am
1 hour PowerPoint presentation, please, in your own time.
Here's one I prepared earlier. No, I am how many years? 18 years I've been playing D&D in its various forms since AD&D. So I've seen a lot of the system growth, the system change. I've seen the Paizo guys come up with Pathfinder and split off. I've seen, a lot in my time. But I've got to say, from my experience point of view, D&D 5th is probably the worst game system I've played in a long time, but...
Controversial statement, sir.
Well, maybe in this group. But Carbon actually makes me enjoy the variants of the 5th edition game purely by the fact that it actually allows you to spend the money that you eventually, inevitably at some point when AD's feeling generous enough, earn.
I've got loads of it stacked up waiting for you lot to just actually take.
And by that I mean, I found a lot of the time in 5th edition, for example, you would go and raid a dragon horde and get a bucket ton of gold and other precious coins and magic items, and those magic items might not be useful to your characters. Just taking the one core rulebook, which is the player's handbook, which that's all Carbon is, basically a player's handbook and a little bit of DM notes. Try and go and sell those magic items in D&D without using the DMG or any of the splat books. You can't. It's just impossible, and you'll eventually get to the point that I found myself in quite a number of times, which was we worked out how many rounds of drinks we could buy for the entire population of Baldur's Gate, because money was just pointless. We could literally only go and buy very generic healing potions and things like that, whereas in Carbon, you look through the augmentation, and I look at those augmentations and I've got a little bit drool, I'm not going to lie about it. There's some stuff that I want to pick up that's like level 3 and level 4, and I'm looking forward to earning like 1,000,000 one-longs so I can start splashing out and getting those augmentations. That element they removed from 5th edition when they removed from 3rd or 3.5 edition the ability to be able to create your own magic items. And I get why they did it. They did it to streamline the system and make everything a lot easier, and that's brilliant. As a gateway to role-playing games, fantastic, quids in. As an 18-year experienced player, it doesn't cut my teeth anymore, and that's why I left a D&D 5th game to come enjoy Carbon.
So, on that, James's exact description is why I love it.
Just to, if I may dive in on that.
No, you may not, Rob, because you're going to defend 5th Ed, because I know that you love 5th Ed.
I wasn't.
No, it's cool.
I was going to say, with Carbon, with the augmentation system, I like that augments kind of fill that gap of magic items in a world that doesn't have magic. Like technology kind of fills that. Economy aside, I think the economy of Carbon, because there aren't any pre-published adventures, there's no standard, there's no measurement of economy. Any economy you're going to introduce in Carbon, your starting character wealth through character gen gives you X amount, fine. There is the core list of augments and weapons and things. I imagine as Carbon grows down the years, you're going to have more resources available from homebrew content. Different DMs will have different economies, for example. I think having a shop system in a modern setting is easier because we're more familiar and DMs have got the real world to pull from for economies and shop systems. Whereas in a fantasy world, I think you're more at the mercy of not everyone's going to have there's no big corporations, for example, sat on vaults of gold to trade you. Your local blacksmith ain't going to be able to drop you 20 grand on a magic hammer you found or whatever. So it's nice being able to have that modern society, big corporations, people are cruising around in private jets and tanks and having laser guns and more expenses. But I think both can be scaled through a DM. You could run a poverty level, low money, you can't afford anything Carbon game.
Dave?
I think you can, but I think
how you doing, Dave?
For me, running core book, if you're going to run anything, it's the book that's in front of you. You know, try that first. Try going vanilla with the rules as you've got them. And Carbon has a scaling system and a beautiful leveling system outside of the 10 levels that you get as your character, because you won't end up with oh, I'm an investigator of 5th level and I'm an investigator of 5th level. Well, that's fantastic, but you feel different, you look different, you've taken different options, you've got different augmentations. I found a lot of the time you take a 5th level wizard and a 5th level wizard, and there's not a vast difference between them.
I disagree on that, but
So we can discuss D&D on a D&D Q&A.
yeah, exactly.
So, Dave, you I don't believe you DM'd either.
No, to be fair, I've never
only-
DM'd anything.
Just calling out to be called DM Dave, mate. I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
You know, I'll get there at some point, maybe. Who knows? I used to play D&D 3.5, and the difference between 3.5 and 5 is massive. It's like they've basically just dumbed it down a bit. The difference between 3.5 and Carbon is, for me anyway, character creation in Carbon is really easy. Literally do this, and I think Rob touched on it a little bit earlier, saying that Carbon's new, whereas D&D's been around for ages, and so they've, like,
How long?
hackers are
Ages.
hackers are basically like your spellcasters. They've got like 12 spells to choose from, nano spells to choose from, whereas in D&D you've got like 50 pages of spells to like sift through of, oh, what should I be? And for someone who's just getting back into tabletop again, coming into Carbon's been absolutely awesome, because it's basically like, oh, what's that? A gun. I understand a gun. A gun is fine. What's that? You want me to be a dickhead? This is okay. I've got 31 years of being a dickhead.
Want to be Dave and character choice is totally different, all right? Don't be pinning this on us, mate. Don't be like, oh, they want me to do this.
Just AD was sending me messages, loads of them.
Be a dick.
Come in.
Be a dick. So
I think, yeah, but it's quite nice. I am now playing in a D&D campaign as well. One that actually Arcane's running in Chukrayani, which is really nice. But yeah, Carbon's been really fun to get into, and like James was saying as well, like the augments and stuff are just bananas. If you don't have the book and you like tabletop, go and pick it up, because it's absolutely ridiculous.
Do you find AD as a DM, to throw the question back at you, do you find as a DM, I know you're a big fan, and again, I don't know how James DMs or how Nathan DMs. You're very homebrew. You're very homebrew based, and I'm very pre-published based. It's fair to say, yeah?
Yeah.
With Carbon, you don't have a lot of. You've got the core book. That's currently all that's available, right? So.
No, there is some other content available on their site.
I mean, you haven't got the length that you have with, say, D&D or with Pathfinder,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So as somebody who homebrews a lot, I think it suits AD's style of DMing, because there isn't a lot of there's no expectation. Like, people who go into a D&D game or go into a Pathfinder game kind of know what's out there. They know what it's capable of doing, because most of it's probably been done before.
So
with
what's
Carbon,
the question?
how do you find the ability to homebrew from the core book, and how do you...
For Carbon?
Yeah, how have you found homebrewing things and pulling things in?
I've actually found it a challenge, because if you said right, we're playing in 2020, other than fucking Zombie Aid, but like, I can do modern easy, like, because it's so familiar to me. I do fantasy really well, because I've read it, watched it, written it, like, since I was little. Younger, we'll go with younger. Yeah, I remember James when he was this high, but
I still am.
yeah, age 30. But actually coming up with cyberpunk stuff, I've never read any cyberpunk. I've never watched the full Blade Runner film. I know, but
Yeah.
Whoa!
Wow.
What are we
You've just
wasting
lost
time on the
4
Q&A for? We're taking him to...
Seriously.
Thanks. Can you take over the Q&A while Eddie go watch Blade Runner?
Yeah.
So in fact, the first time I got to watch Blade Runner almost fully was New Year's Eve gone. and that's because at Bravo 1 we had it on a big screen, and I sat there and watched as much of it as I could. I didn't.
Actually make me sad.
I couldn't give you examples of cyberpunk movies or books if you asked me. I just wouldn't be able to. But then if
Wait,
somebody... Go on.
have you not even seen Akira?
Nope.
Oh wow. Well, I'm not sure that would be classified as cyberpunk, but I would certainly put it in the edge of that genre.
So things like Total Recall, like their examples given in when I was talking to the Carbon lot. But I've watched Schwarzenegger's chuffing. I've watched all the Schwarzeneggers, everything a million times. But Total Recall, I know inside out. Never had a clue it was cyberpunk. So I was unaware of what would tick cyberpunk. So even my hobbies, when I wasn't doing sports, I did LARP, and the only LARP I've ever done is a high fantasy world. I've never done anything outside of that. So Orion Sphere for a plug. I wouldn't have a clue what I was doing if I turned up there.
So we've already got a role planned out for you, mate.
The corpse. So the
Wasteland, it would be amazing.
And that sort of stuff. So homebrewing it was great to have. There's quite a lot. I found there's quite a lot of lore and stuff in the standard rulebook for Carbon. That was enough for me to pull little bits off from the mega corporations, the gangs, the style of NPCs that are put in there, the monsters at the back in the monster manual, the robots and mechs and stuff. And I do find it very, very... The 5e experience obviously helped to understand the rule set without having to learn the rule set. Even though I still forget all the bloody sense motive, diplomacy and insight checks. DMing Cyberpunk I found challenging, but really fun challenging, because it meant I had to research more and more, and the wingmaster of Cyberpunk means I have to write more and make more notes and prep a little bit more. Whereas fantasy, you can literally walk in on a Saturday and be like, right, let's go, we're playing D&D and I'll have an adventure for you. So I really like the fact that Carbon gave me so much to use as a starter DM that hadn't even touched Cyberpunk stuff. And I might have mentioned Neon and Nano quite a lot. But it seems everything I research has got the word Neon and Nano in it.
It's like you've read the glossary at the start where it goes, here's some acronyms that you might want to know.
You're surprised I didn't just call everything Carbon.
That's sort of what I meant with the rule books. Because like the Carbon rulebook is very much here's loads of background and here's loads of setting and here's loads of this. The D&D rulebook's literally like, here are all the races and like 4 paragraphs on vaguely the races, because they're very... D&D's very much, in my opinion, even though I know they've got loads of like extra...
Yeah, there we go.
Like extra campaigns and like other little one-shots and stuff, all pre-written stuff. Carbon, for me, when I'm looking at it, I'm reading through it and I'm like, yeah, this all vaguely makes sense, because it's like there's a city, it's
this is a world.
split off into this, yeah, and it's like, and these are the things that happen in it. Other than that, it's just like...
So as a segue and a touch on what Nath said, there is actually other content available on their site. I mean, people... It feels like I've been playing this for... Well, it's got to be nearly a year now, Rob, I suppose, which will touch on Grace's question in a second. But they only kickstarted it at the end of 2019, so... It is literally brand new. Then obviously COVID hit and all that, so a lot of their stuff was slowed down. But the content they have a subscription in place where you can get weekly or fortnightly, I'd have to check, missions, and they are just literally very quick missions to just insert into your adventures, campaigns, etc. They've, as Nath has already received and James is looking to acquire, the cities book for, is it Tokyo, London, Manhattan?
Yeah.
Yep, so they've done a wealth of lore and stuff for them, which have extra flavour bits in. Terminal Overdrive itself is actually I'm currently talking to Robert, who wrote the game. Terminal Overdrive, as you can see, Nightbot. Jesus, surely that reacts on voice.
No, that was me.
No. No, Dave does.
Oh,
Dave
right,
has
right.
some voice.
Jay, this is why I don't know Cyberpunk. I thought it was magic. I literally thought it was magic.
Arthur
So,
C. Clarke, eat your heart out.
Gandalf with a minigun. So, so the Terminal Overdrive, if you check that out and give you a little preview, but the Terminal Overdrive contains an updated core rulebook after 18 months of obviously us lot and various people on their Discord and their internal groups passing feedback to Robert at Dragon Turtle. So improving certain rules, the way exploits were, just little tweaks, which, everything's always going to need once you release it to the wild. Hey, Sharadell, are you alright? Terminal Overdrive is actually a level 1 to 10 campaign that I've forgotten the name of the writer because I'm a professional, but they write or have written for Games Workshop, and they have written this level 1 to 10 called Terminal Overdrive, which is part of the Kickstarter, and lots of other stuff there. As soon as it goes live tomorrow, I'll be spamming social media with it so people can get a further brief synopsis on it. But there's more backgrounds, there's new, so you can be I believe, a robot. So whereas the synths are artificial intelligence, you can actually be full on Chappie / Short Circuit for those old enough.
Cool.
And they may or may not have small, the little bonuses you get for being your particular origin or background. Hide in plain sight because they're a robot and everyone in Carbon just sees robots walking down the street. So
I might need to change 413.
So it's still cool stuff like that. They're bringing in new items, new backgrounds, new origins, new augmentations. This level 1 to 10 campaign, which I'll probably be looking to run, or you lot will get back from Mars and be going, oh, this looks good. But
These guys are really easy to kill, but these guys are really hard.
It starts at level 1, you'll be hitting it at level 5, so you should get through it.
I've just realised AD's turned around and went, oh yeah, when you're back from Mars, we'll probably be running this. As in, the 4 of us, make sure you back the Kickstarter.
But don't read the book.
Yeah, you're allowed to read it. Buy the book, don't read it.
So,
leave it on the shelf.
So Terminal Overdrive, look out for that. To go back to Grace's question, how did you find out about Carbon in the first place then? Did they approach you or vice versa? So, when I got a job working at the same place Rob did, they had a gaming store called Psychic Games. Unfortunately, it's gone, and I was a star there, and Rob was a part-timer. So,
Is it that Rob?
this Rob here.
Lies. Okay.
And on their shelf was a Kickstarter. The Sidekick Games store specialised in Kickstarter games, and one of them was the Carbon 2185 game. So there's a couple of copies on there. I picked it up because it said 5e, so I had a look at it.
You thought it was a D&D book.
Was informed that the weird-looking robot wizard on the front wasn't a wizard, but yeah, and then there was a little brief exchange between myself and I can't remember if it was Rob or my boss at the time, of explaining that Carbon was a 5th edition Cyberpunk game. So I was like, cool. So we started doing stuff for their channel. I got a few players together, which is Lauren was one of the players who you saw last week and will continue to play, maybe not the same character, but continue to play. And Rob, as it happens, Rob joined in, and Ian, who has recently just left this game. But it was Lauren, Ian, some of you will know Leon from LT, and Rob joined as well, and Dave Ewan. So they were my original Carbon 2185 party. Now, yay, Milky Bar buttons, kids. Other white chocolate is available.
Yeah, not a sponsor.
But they cost me.
It's not really chocolate.
What? Does it say chocolate on it?
It says chocolate on it, but apparently it's not really chocolate.
I don't think it does.
Isn't it? There's not enough cocoa in it to be legally classed as chocolate or something stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Legally.
Wow, what a segue from talking about Carbon. And
Right, so I started running a Carbon game basically, and then shortly after I contacted Robert to ask if there was the creator of Carbon, if there was anything we could do to help them. So yeah, you bastard. So we started playing the game.
I'll tell you why in a minute.
I contacted Rob. We had a little chinwag, and Rob was keen for us to help see how it played out, because nobody else was streaming it. Obviously, people had bought it to play in their own houses and such, and we were streaming it. Fast forward to now, world goes to shit, no longer working at that place. We stick up the Heavyweight Gaming channel and we get another party together. From that, I approached Rob again and asked if he was willing, or if Dragon Total Games were willing to sponsor the show. And we had a little backwards and forwards and agreed that it'd be a good idea for us and them getting the Carbon game out there, as well as me being a little bit super keen to be involved in something very new, very cool, and seeing it grow. Almost like leveling up with it in a geeky way. So yeah. And you get 10% off if you use Wait at Dragon Total Games.
Yeah, it already came up.
That's why I said it, because I saw just the message pop.
So the reason that I mentioned the chocolate thing is that my girlfriend keeps talking to me about it. I heard that when I got a message. I do have a question from my girlfriend, if we can ask it. She's watching, but she's also playing Diablo 2, so can't type.
So we do believe, we have to stipulate this, we believe that she is human, but it could be that she is AI, because none of us have actually laid eyes on it, and it might be a nano AI or a carbon one, we're not sure.
I just like to say, I don't believe that she's human.
See what I mean? We're 50-50 on this, and there's 5 of us, so go work out the
what
numbers.
is her question?
So the question is, who, for all the players and for AD, who's our favourite NPC been in the campaign and why?
Fucking hell, I know this one.
Bison baby. That's me done. Dave?
Yeah, again, it's got to be Bison. For people that haven't been watching since like session 1, I only joined 4 sessions ago, something like that. But I've watched every single one, and like session 2, I think Bison turned up.
Something like that, yeah.
Hilarious, absolutely amazing, and the fact that he just keeps coming back, because you just
keep failing to kill
pissing him
him.
off. You just keep pissing him off, and that moment in Sparks' workshop when suddenly the bubble goes up, and there's like no comms in here, and Jake walks outside to make a phone call, and then walks back in to to ask you all a question, and it cuts off, and then suddenly Bison's just like, you know what, fuck those guys, and just it's just incredible. I don't know if AD had it planned. I don't want to know if he had it planned. Like, Bison might have just been a one-off, but it was just amazing. It's just hilarious. I think a close second's got to be Cherry Bonbon, just because like she didn't even walk up and say hello. She just sort of walks up, looks,
and threw a grenade at
throws
us.
grenades at you, does this whilst flying into the air. It's just beautiful. Oh, and then there's the guy on the tank that rolled past whilst you were in section.
Oh, he was a proper dick.
Gumball, baby.
That was just beautiful. Like,
He's just
yeah.
Are you in a position to answer, Mr. DM, of was Bison meant to be the larger scale bad guy that we kind of have always, was it a plan for him to be against us, or was it open-ended?
Is he our nemesis?
Yeah, like how, again, if it's, you don't want to say for the story, fine, but how much of it was planned and how much of it was just, well, they've screwed this guy which way sideways, let's try and kill them.
Well, answer this. I might have woke the baby up. Oh, our lass is not happy with me. Ooh. That's your fault, Dave. So, Dave, what was yours? You answer your lass's question. And then we'll...
What was mine? It's funny actually, since she asked it, I've been thinking about this and I've been struggling to come up with an answer other than Bison. And I can't. I have to say Bison myself. I mean, purely because I am going to fucking kill that guy. Either with Jean or with whatever other character it requires me to keep re-rolling until I've killed him. I will kill him.
It'll be like Gamers 2. Here's another one. Here's another one.
It's the first session I was in. I even, like, if I just rolled slightly higher on that effing D20, even I was just like, even I want to go kill him. I've never met him before, but I want to help you kill him.
Yeah.
Rob?
Yep.
Who was your favourite NPC?
I don't know. I quite liked the copy of Evil Jake. That was quite fun.
Evil Chase.
Evil Chase, sorry,
Yeah.
yeah. That was cool.
I've just come up with a better answer.
Like, I think what I like about... I think...
Larry's my favourite NPC. Can he go back to being NPC'd?
Ooh.
You know, I was waiting for my turn to say, you're all my NPC favourites because you're all non-player characters to me. You're just experienced pools waiting for me to cash in.
I think it's what Dave said, like, with the whole idea of... we haven't had a massive, huge cast of NPCs, but it feels... I really like the fact we've had reoccurring. And, like, Evil Chase was cool. The whole idea of, oh yeah, I'm just going to see someone and then his head's cut off, then he rocks up again and we're like, wait, what? Like...
Stuff you with them rocking round.
yeah, like the whole... I generally think as a group we've been blindsided by a lot of the narrative elements. And it's... Obviously our current arc off the Mars feels a little bit more... We're off doing something slightly away from the shenanigans we've got back into in San Fran. But yeah, it's been quite a cool... Almost like uncovering the mystery and digging deep and stuff. Like, it generally doesn't feel predictable.
That's cool.
I think probably my favourite NPC is the Elizabeths.
That's cool. Because you can relate.
No, it's just because I think it's really nice to see you describe them as being like pretty much identical and unified, but then even when they're talking to us or we're talking or interacting with them, like one or two of them you'll give like a little bit of personality quirk to, and it's just that really like sweet nuance about it that you can't tell any difference between them whatsoever, but one gives a slight smirk when, you know, Sean mentions something or any of that, and it's just that little bit of nuance to it where you could just have blank faceless shells that just all talk the same, but you give that, you know, there's a twinkle in the eye of the one on the left or the one on the right, you know. But it's stuff like that that makes NPCs stand out, and that's why they stood out for me. Bison, I can give him or take him. That's the verbose, really, you know, beefed up side of your personality coming out. And for me, that's great that you get to that out. But it doesn't do anything for me as an NPC. It's the little nuances that you come up with for the other ones. Like even when we were talking to the I can't remember what they're called, the really tall one that was out in the jungle and stuff like that.
He never gave you his name. But he was
the
wormer,
the race. I can't remember the race.
Wormer.
Yeah, the wormer.
Yeah.
Like even that had a different approach to it than other NPCs that we've spoken to, and it's that nuance that you give to those characters that makes them stand out as different. So it's not just your voice doing the same thing or slightly changed in some way. There's like little elements to them that's really like nice and nuanced.
I will say my favourite to portray is Bison for the reason you said. Is I just get to be me. If I was dating a Russian bodybuilder. Becky, are you Russian?
Are you a bodybuilder?
No, it's got to crack an ass with a walnut. Crack an ass with a walnut. Crack a walnut with her ass. There you go, Van Damme. So, but one of my favourite NPC moments was Larry. Was when Niall and Nath actually had a moment with Larry when they removed his back. But it was nice to see the photo in Larry's hand from the NPC perspective, but to see Nath and even Niall, who I've known a lot of years and generally doesn't fall to that side of roleplay or that sort of depth of emotion, actually like just holding his hand. I found that quite a cool moment for
as someone who was watching at that point, and as someone who has also known Niall for a while, I didn't see that coming at all. And it totally blindsided me, and I was sort of sat there going, that was...
It's one of the big
you've got dust in your eyes. Like it was just a really genuine, like, nice moment. So it's almost in a world which is all neon and shiny and glittery, but actually deep down is just a shithole.
Yeah, that's
one of the big
like
reasons.
little moments like that.
That's what I wanted to play in. It's kind of when I was thinking of a new character, I had a couple of ideas for characters, and then I just kind of like, hang on a minute, and like, yeah, that whole thing of I was looking for a way to have a pre-existing kind of relationship with at least somebody in the group, because that's something that I think is really cool from a narrative perspective. something that I kind of push on my own games when I'm running games as well. So I was like, oh, where could it come from? Like, how could I, like, why would they be in that situation? And I was like, hang on a minute. They've just left the bot, like, they've just dumped him on the bar of that guy. Why does, like, literally drop one off and he just takes off after you? Like, always tag him in. Like, you've already got the pre-existing thing. He's a cool NPC. And yeah, it's weird playing a character, or it's weird picking up a character that you didn't come up with a concept with.
That was actually quite. I don't really know the word for it, but it was nice that you asked to play. Yeah, humbling. But I don't think it was a moment that needed to be humble. I don't know. I don't really know what humble means, so we'll go with that. I'll take your word on it.
It's the first time in a campaign where normally if I'm rolling a character, I've got a really strong idea if this is mechanically kind of what I enjoy playing in the game, and then I kind of go, right, now let's pull a character that fits that, and the narrative becomes second. I think this is the first character I've played in a while where the character came first. I didn't care about the mechanic. I was like, oh, Larry's cool, I'll play Larry. I'm not rolling the character, I'm not picking his gear, I'm not allocating his stats to start with them as we've leveled up and progressed.
Right, you might have picked a bit more, might you? So what's he got in? He's got a leather jacket and a shotgun. All right, great.
And about 40p. He's flat broke.
I will just.
And he hates modern technology.
Yeah, that's the modern technology thing. That's me. That wasn't on the sheet.
Yeah. So to go back to the mechanical side of it, and when we touched on comparisons with other fifth ed, I find. Obviously, the more you guys get into the odd fight now and then, I find the mechanics are evenly matched to the baddies to you. So there are creatures, monsters, encounters, whatever in Fantasy 5th Ed that I've played and run, where I feel that you've got to keep adding to it to give the players a run for the money. Whereas I think some random with a gun in Carbon is still a threat, and I like the fact that it. I mean, this is probably true with most modern day systems, but I like the way Carbon, or at least it feels to me the way Carbon allows it to be dangerous just because they've got a firearm. Like, they've got a firearm, so yeah, there's 5 of you, but one of you's getting shot in the face.
Yeah, the great equaliser.
It turns out if you get shot, it hurts.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if you're like up here or down here. Getting shot hurts.
That's why I decided to play effectively the rogue. If you can't see me, you can't fucking shoot me.
I think something that feels quite nice in Carbon compared to D&D, and I don't know if it's just something that I've picked up on the D&D side. With Carbon, the action economy side of it doesn't feel as horrible. I think Carbon could do with a few more bonus action features for a few of the races, for a few of the careers. But for the most part, combat feels a bit faster because you don't have tons of HP. You don't have a lot of ways of enhancing your armor class, and you've got bullet resistance on top of it. So you've almost got 2 tiers of armor against firearms versus melee. And I mean, we've fought more things in melee than we have been shot at. But
to be fair, they were shooting at you. You just ran into them.
That's fair. They can't shoot me if I'm punching them in the head.
Ian Chase.
I think with Carbon, even though it uses 5 years an underpinning combat system, it feels like a different system. Even though there are some similarities, like hacking and spellcasting, marine with like some fighter from 5e like Second Wind and multi-action and things like that, and sneak attack. So there's copied over, but it feels very different. The creatures we've gone up against, like a mech, multi-attack in say D&D feels dangerous, but it's still just a claw and a bite. If a mech's then it's got 55 guns on it, you know full well it's got a lot of things that can throw you. So individual targets.
I mean, like a maintenance mech that you gave back.
Yeah. I just don't. How you've DM'd both, and you guys have all played both. How do you feel?
Are we back in it comparing?
No, I'm just saying.
Is this mechanic in 5th and this mechanic?
How do you feel the Carbon mechanics kind of feels in combat? Does it feel faster? Does it feel slower than what you've done? Like, what are your comments on the combat system?
So to quote Robert, who was asked a similar question in one of his podcasts or interviews, and it was not word for word, but basically, what you've just said there about it being faster, smoother, slicker, was the reason he chose 5e as a template, was to give it that speed of he'd played Cyberpunk games in the past, some of the older Cyberpunk systems, which I've looked into and hurt my eyes, but they were very, very, very mechanical, and you needed to. There was a lot of shit going. Like you could die at character creation in some of them. It was ridiculous, but using the 5th ed just as a template, never mind if it's attached to D&D or someone's homebrewed other stuff, allowed him to tweak it ever so slightly to make it fast and to do exactly what you just said, Rob. The response you're giving is what he aimed for, and I'd have to agree with you and with Carbon, Robert, that the speed of it, to me, when I'm running encounters for yourselves, I'm on like round 4 or 5, like really quick. I look down and I'm like, oh shit, they're 30 seconds in. But yeah, so I do feel the speed of it is definitely there.
Just a bit more urgency. It feels more urgent. I don't know if it's the setting or how dangerous things, like how the way the armor works. Like most things hit, it feels rewarding as well.
I also feel that you lot are more aware of your periphery in Carbon. I don't know if it's because of the setting, that the fact that it's modern and people watching the fight nearby, running down the streets. It's a lot more. You're not in a cave fighting Monster X. You're in a street having a shootout. You've got to get out of there fast. You can't stick around to multi-chain your many classes and then loot the place. You've got to sometimes just fire and run.
It's the difference between. It's just like if AD describes a street and was just like, down this street, you've got 2 cars and a transit van. We've all seen a transit van. We know how big a transit van is. But like if we're walking through a cave and AD goes, there's 2 rocks and a big rock. Like, well, how big's this rock? Like,
talking 50 foot, or are we talking 5 foot?
Yeah.
I think as well, like, if you look at modern media, like movies, like you look at a fantasy movie or like if it's much a police drama, anything with guns, an action movie, kind of how people move tactically, even if you've never had any military training. Like most people have seen a movie and kind of have a rough idea of in an action movie, ducking behind a car, taken up and shot, covering each other. Those concepts.
Straight at 'em with a minigun.
Those
you just watch Arnie movies.
That
We
fits
just do
quite
Predator
nicely.
tactics.
That feels quite nice in Carbon and gives you a reasonable standing. And because it's more ranged heavy, taking cover and picking shots off and knowing you can be shot from outside in feels a lot more of a threat than in fantasy setting where most people are going to have swords or melee weapons. And it feels like things are dangerous up close. If you're staying away, you can't stab me.
My favourite example of why I really like the way you lot think in Carbon, or makes the players think in Carbon, was when Sparks died. Was the fact that Alex was ahead actually reconning, got to witness an entire scene. There's bullets flying everywhere that are not focused on him. He's literally hunkered down, witnessing a cutscene basically, because he didn't get involved. Or was that been very different? But and then came back. You guys were in a fight where Sparks went down. It was a fight you won but lost at the same time, but there was still urgency to it. You were like, right, grab him and go. Has anyone got a diamond to res him? It was like, we've literally got to drag this dead hacker through the streets. Luckily, you'd made a contact with Larry to hide him away earlier, but there was an urgency, and I kind of like the urgency it brings, and that the rule set of Carbon allows that urgency to be quite fluid, or it feels that way.
Since playing Carbon, it's made me rethink how I run games based on, and this is probably me blowing smoke up a certain DM here. So the way AD runs the game with Carbon, it feels like, say, it's as much as he likes to say he's a combat player and he doesn't care about story and narrative, the story is engaging and there's enough going on to make it not all about the combat. And I think that's where some games can fall apart. Having, like you say, that if I was running a D&D game now, or I am running a D&D game, it makes me want to pull back a little bit on the access to healing, pull back make things more varied, have ranged threats, have the threats feel more threatening. I think Nathan touched on it about the healing feels more, you can bandage it up, but if someone gets their head cut off in Carbon, you ain't, there's only so far modern medicine and nano plasters can fix things, you know what I mean? And I think that now I'll take away when I'm running my D&D game on a Friday and make things feel a little bit more dangerous.
If you want realistic healing, give Iron Kingdoms a go. What's that? You've got a cut on your leg, and okay, that's going to take 2 to 3 weeks to heal.
Alien does something similar as well. Yeah.
So what were you going to say, James?
I was going to say that looking at mechanics point of view, what 5th edition D&D and Carbon do is they lower the AC. So, I mean, if you watch the Pathfinder 2 one, we're now getting in the realms of being able to roll a dice and get like a 30 on a dice roll if you roll particularly well and get the bonuses for it. But like the whole point of D&D and Carbon is they lower your ability to get the bonuses, and getting like an advantage and things like that is a big deal in D&D and Carbon, and that's how you beat the mechanics of having a lower AC. So it makes the combat feel more lethal because the dice roll becomes the most critical element of it, because you're only adding potentially up to maybe a 4 or a 5 to whatever you're going to roll. So if you roll a 7, you're going to hit an AC of 12. Hopefully most people are a higher AC than that, but sometimes you'll find things that are that AC or lower, and that's where the lethality of the system comes in. I mean, I can't remember because I haven't got the sheet with me because I'm over in Jersey at the moment, but I don't know how many hit points 413X has, but if I get into a gunfight and probably after 3 or 4 rounds, if I've been hit quite a lot, I'm scrabbling and I'm probably almost to the point of dying because it is that lethal. And it feels sometimes that D&D misses that because, as Nath pointed out, healing is so prevalent and pretty much all over the place. You know, you can just buy a healing potion for like 20 gold pieces and you get some hit points back.
You don't have to.
Whereas in this, it's like 50,000 one-longs just for a 1d6
pack,
plus
yeah.
1 nano pack.
Or 100,000 one-longs to cure yourself with a sexually transmitted disease. I mean,
Yeah, if you watch last week's, you'll find out.
But it's to move on.
Oh, bro, baby.
Yeah, it's to branch out from Mel on what James was saying. It's so I'm a combat hacker, which is basically a glorified nano wizard. I've got an AC
with a shotgun.
with a revolver. Yeah, but I've got 34 hit points and an AC of 16. I'm pretty sure if Larry wanted to, he could run up, hit me once, and just paste me across the floor.
How much HP do you have?
34.
I couldn't outright kill you, but I could knock you out and around. I could knock you. I could down you in one hit, in one combo. See, I've got 50. I've got the arguably almost max of what I possibly could be. I've got the feat that allows me to take extra health per turn. I have the highest hit die per level, and I'm sat at 53 HP, which, unless my armor's not brilliant. I mean, I think James hits a good point about the dice roll being useful. I think the thing D&D does to try and counter that idea as your player power increases past level 11 into the heroic level is everything's +7, +8 with proficiency, right? So your average, if you're a rogue, your stealth's going to be +8, +9, even higher. To hit rolls are +6. So your average roll, it just moves up. So everything's AC has to move up with it. Because of how swingy a D20 can be, a +7 modifier to a D20, it makes it very swingy in late game D&D. And it feels like what I should be really good at, I'm not always good at just because Loke screws me in Carbon, because it's less modifiers to the dice roll, but the dice tend to be a little bit smaller field.
So I've got a question for you all. Why the classes you chose? James touched on it earlier. He went for the rogue because he knew getting hit was going to work. Rob, I obviously know you picked Larry through roleplay reasons rather than the mechanical side of being an enforcer, but you chose Sparks first.
I did choose Sparks first.
So why did you choose Sparks first, Nath? Why have you gone Jean, John, Dave and James? So we'll go Nath first because Rob talks as much as I do.
I want to be honest, I went with the combat medic because I wanted to play the healer. I wanted to play the party healer. It's not a role I usually take, and I wanted to play the support class for the party.
How are you finding it?
Well, I also recognised it. What I do choose a lot is to often play the charismatic character, and given that those two abilities went hand in hand, it gave me a chance to be the talker and the charismatic lead.
How are you finding it?
I'm finding it really enjoyable, other than the fact that I keep getting shafted on critical rolls at key times.
Yeah. Do you know how you defeat that? Is you keep talking, and when he says make a dice roll, you just talk over him.
I'm a
borrow
bit.
James's dice.
I'm a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I can ship you my dice if you want, mate. They're really cheap. I bought them for like £2 at Just Games. Just
The
saying.
magic
You can buy all the
dice.
prettiest dice in the world, but £2 dice
So
still not bad.
I've got faith in Thornless Rose's dice being amazing when she lets me buy something in her October sale. I've got loads of dice, and it doesn't seem to matter what dice I roll. If it's a really important role, I'm doing something super critical to the progression of us getting money for a job, I will fuck it up. But I'm enjoying playing the class. I think it's a really good class. I'm enjoying playing the character as well.
Dev, you're pretty new, but why did you go combat hacker?
So I went combat hacker because, well, I've never played a wizard or a nano wizard or whatever you want. I've never played any form of caster in any tabletop RPG. And I asked everyone in the group chat, it's just like, what do you feel like you're missing? Because it was not shortly after Sparks had died, but it was relatively shortly after Sparks had died. And they were just like, oh yeah, we need, some form of hacker would be good. And I was just like, I can play a hacker, or I can play, or aren't you bothered about what I play? And so I went with that. And then
should have stipulated hacker more with exclamation marks,
yeah,
rather than I'm not that kind of hacker.
It turns out, yeah, like James just said, that little joke of I'm not that kind of hacker. It turns out I'm really not. Like combat hackers, or just hackers in general, you don't actually get all that many bonuses to hacking and stuff. Because I'm pretty sure Philip and 413X, and I think John, all have the same modifier for hacking, and so
that is one of the elements that has been looked at, is the hacking side of it.
But it's like a hacker in Carbon is more of a battle. Yeah, it's more of just a name for battlefield manipulation in a way of what's that? I wanna blind that guy for a moment. So when we get into a fight, I can sort of go, well, I can see that bloke's got grenades, so I'm going to blind that guy over there, and then I'm going to shoot him in the face.
Yeah.
So
I will say I love the use of some of the when Sparks blacked out the mech while they were checking it out, and when you blacked out the room when you were having a conversation, that obviously stopped Jean listening, but you know what I mean. I really like the use of the Carbon tools and mechanics available to you just in roleplay, like you're just having a chinwag and you're popping off your character skills, which I kind of like. Which I do think is missed in some other systems. They don't use their character skills in their IC environment.
So it's for me, even though we joke about it, it's just like, oh, I'm not that kind of hacker. It's a reminder for me of I'm not actually a hacker. Like my character is not.
Do you think
my character is not a specific, there's a computer, I will push the 50 buttons and it will do the clicky.
Do you almost feel like you've multi-classed? With Combat Hacker, I find that the reason I didn't go Combat Hacker was because it felt like I was multi-classing into Fighter, because you get your weapon preference, right? And you're more, I can shoot, I'm good with guns, but I've got the hacks in my back pocket and the manipulation when I need them. That, and even as a robotics hacker, what Sparks was, we didn't really get to see it, but the idea was the gun drone was my combat part, and I was then the battlefield manipulation part. For me, the hacker role in Carbon, outside of combat, the world's your oyster. You know what I mean? You've got so many toys you can play with outside of combat. Great. In combat, it doesn't feel like those tools come through as like I think in my head, I'm still thinking it like a caster. I'm still thinking I'm a wizard or a warlock, and I can do loads of damage with magic, whereas it isn't. It's you support things, and you're still relying on a shotgun to actually do the work.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, for me, the way I now look at it after like a session or two, after the first or second session in, the way I looked at being a hacker was very much I'm a bloke with a gun who's got these little tiny nano robots that he can manipulate, which he can then use to manipulate everything else.
Midi-chlorians.
Yeah, basically. I am one with the nano force.
I might do a Star Wars one shot.
That'd be quite cool. But it's
Just
one of
another
those
franchise you can butcher by saying that you've never watched Star Wars.
I've heard of it. What's up with you? Kick
What's
off in
movies?
kick
You
off
heard
in,
of Blade Runner, you never watched it.
kick off in the sky.
But yeah, it's for. I think if Philip died, and I rolled up another character, I would still seriously consider a hacker at some point, but I'd probably end up just going some form of enforcer like Larry, but focus more on guns, like we did for the charity stream one shot. I have all of the guns with all of the shots, and I'm gonna sit somewhere.
I did enjoy the one shot simply because it was all guns. Like everyone, there was like shooting.
Let's just have a shootout in a shopping centre.
It was brilliant. It was so cool. Mel,
Loaded to bear. What's your budget? Buy what you want.
I do have
Lock
to
and load, boys.
I do have to point out to Mel, I've also never watched Star Wars. No, I've watched Star Wars. I'm a big fan of Star Wars. So don't drag me into that, Mel.
Wait, has she just admitted she's never seen Star Wars?
Yeah.
Grace hasn't.
What
really
made James
watched Star
play
Wars as well.
Alex?
What made James play Alex, or what made me choose a scoundrel? There's two
Both.
very different questions.
Yes.
What made you pick Scoundrel?
What
What made you pick
I'll
Scoundrel?
answer the scoundrel one first. So, for me, when I left my D&D 5th game, I played a cleric, and I played the only cleric in a party of 7 players. So I was bored to tears of healing. I wanted nothing to do with healing as much as I could. However, when I joined the game, AD will attest to this when we did Pathfinder 2, and we all picked classes for it. I realistically, I don't care what class I play or anything like that. I will look at what the party has and then work out where its weakness is and then fill that gap. So when I messaged AD after they'd done session 1 and said, do you mind if I join you guys on Thursdays? The answer came back, yeah, of course, no worries. I said, what's the makeup? And he kind of gave me a little rundown of it, and I could immediately see that the class that was missing was someone that could do scoundrelly roguey things. So I went, right, okay, well, I'm going to play scoundrel. And then I got the book, and then I read through parts of it and went, okay, well, scoundrel's just like a rogue. There's not much difference with that. You get combat one or stunty rogue, or throw yourself, or thiefy rogue.
What was that game? Max Payne? There you go.
Yeah, Max Payne. So that's how I came about playing a scoundrel, was just purely looking at the party mechanics. But that's how my brain works when I play D&D anyway. As I said, having played it so long, you look at the mechanics of a party and I go, right, okay, well, it needs that. And that will add a level for the DM to put things in that are probably uniquely going to be based around for me, because it's not like you'll ever see the combat medic attempting to steal something from somewhere unless they do it by a roleplay choice rather than being pushed into it by the party. So that's purely why I chose to be a scoundrel. Why did I choose to play Alex? Well, I like playing nuanced characters that have something about them that is different to the normal. And 413X could be not normal in any sense of the word, but at the same time is that level of normality that you would see quite often in cyberpunk stuff. And just having the ability to be dry and emotionless and analytical of situations is quite an interesting aspect for me to roleplay, and also at the same time incredibly difficult, because I have to change the way that I speak.
I have to change an emotional wreck. So,
as AD will attest, we did work together for 5 years as an NPC team for a LARP system.
Don't blame it on the NPC. I've known for years you've been an emotional little person.
No, gentlemen.
No.
So,
That moment when Zarasta's wife died by being eaten by that purple tent, the look on James's face, I had to look him in the eye and he looked at me with all that hope and expectation, and I just had to look back at him with like instant tears. Like, I was just like, I'm heartbroken. And this is a game. You're going to go and just sit somewhere for a moment
But yeah, so playing 413X and having to turn off that emotional element to it, that, you know, when Jean wants to go guns a-ho and smash an airplane into Bison, who's in a robot suit that's already crash landed in a jungle, and being like, you know, the statistical chances of you actually A, hitting him, and B, killing him are nigh on impossible, so maybe you should just get out of the pilot seat.
Never tell him the odds.
Well, I did, and he got out the pilot seat, so that was fine.
Jean Solo, pilot.
The way I, from watching you play 413X, the way I always sort of, the character that I could liken 413X to was Data from the Next Generation.
Yeah.
Because
And
you're very
that's the
yeah.
other aspect that I wanted to push, was I wanted to push a character that grows, and it grows.
Except you don't want to be
with-
a cowboy.
It grows as you guys interact with it, like, because when we got onto the ship going to Mars, there was a question about hacking into something. Well, 413X was trying to branch out into the group, so therefore agreed with helping Larry get to a point of being able to hack it, which is why it went and did that.
Philip.
Because there was a request by the group for a functionality that it ran the numbers and effectively went, but that's going to be a useful thing, so it went and tried to do it. And
I mean-
you know, it went categorically wrong, because any time a player interacts with anything that AD writes or does and doesn't just sit in the corner and shut up, it inevitably goes
yeah,
incredibly wrong.
That's exactly what it was. I'm just going to walk through this ship after being told not to walk through it, go all the way upstairs, hack into a computer, come back down. I was like, what are you doing, you idiots, man? Don't pin this on me.
You weren't the only one saying that.
Fucking
It's
hell.
like, folks,
That went south.
I got Larry
You know, the moment
punching
that
John,
went south
John
is when-
stabbing Larry.
Yeah, it went south the moment he stabbed me.
No.
Long
No.
before I stabbed you.
That wasn't the moment. That wasn't the moment. It didn't matter how many times. It was a sort of like, this, I could do it, but this is a really stupid idea. No, let's not do it. And then everyone goes, apart from Nathan, yeah, let's go do the thing. Like, okay. And then the thing happens. And then it's, okay, Larry, we're going to need a distraction. But the distraction's going to be like, put on the gun show and do the thing. And what do? Do a flying Superman punch in John's face. No wonder
To
he
be
turned
fair,
out
to
to
be fair-
You did
To
specify.
be fair, he just jabbed. He did stare. I jab him. And Nerf's response to a jab.
Shink, 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 shink.
I do, hand on my heart, I every Thursday when we finish our sessions, Becky's like, how did the session go? I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going through that lot's head. I don't know. I've offered them 10 mil. They threw it away for roleplay. Fucking ludicrous. You know what I mean? So don't pin this on me sitting in the corner, shit. I didn't attack Bison mid-air with a jet. I didn't crash the plane on the way out of the hangar.
Bison attacked us. We defended ourselves.
You could have used a gun.
To get back to the point, that's
sorry.
what I'm trying to do with 413X, is I'm trying to bring the humanistic side to the AI side.
I really enjoyed Alex's interaction with the kids and the dice. That was cool.
And yeah, the kids
Yeah,
with the
that was
dice
cool.
instant
Yeah.
was purely, you know, functionally he went, I need to gather information. The only thing that's around to gather information from is a bunch of children. So it went over, and because the way that I like to think is 413X is like almost like he's a child himself inside, because he might be 40 years old on piece of paper, but he's done nothing but military service,
Yeah.
so he doesn't really know how to interact with people other than to salute and give
He's
you
a proper
factual
Terminator
details.
moment. I was loving it.
So then interacting with children was a whole new thing for him, because all the kids wanted to do was play with the shiny clicky clacky number generators.
I know who does
So he
that.
was
Who does that?
But yeah, so that's why I chose 413X to be the way that he is, and that's why I chose him to be so.
That's pretty cool.
I've got another question for us, if we're up for it.
Go for it. We got
The
10,
thing is,
we got
it
10
kind of-
minutes.
We'll
It
put
kind of
sparks in the
relates
bin.
nicely to the conversation we've been having, I think, actually, which is what do we think about the class balance and any of the classes that we think are particularly badass?
Is Robert messaging you?
No.
Is he just getting feedback from us surreptitiously?
So what do we think about the carbon class balances against themselves? Yeah.
Yeah.
Internal
Yeah.
balance, I think, is pretty good. I think we've got a fairly skewed. We haven't done the very typical RPG trope of fight a goblin, fight a bigger goblin, fight. You know, our combat encounter's been quite dynamic. So stacking our character balance against the systems, I think we're in a quite a unique situation. I think without having more traditional combat encounters, I think it'd be really hard to judge the internal balance.
I personally think the Investigator is pretty weak in comparison. I mean,
I don't know. Giving everyone advantage and pointing out weakness and stuff, exposed weakness is really strong.
I played an Investigator for the one shot because for some reason for the one shot I was just like, yeah, you know, I'm not going to do a shooty bang bang, but it's a one shot and I should have. I think Investigators can be quite cool. They've got so many little things that they can do. Like Rob was saying, like they are, in my opinion, more geared towards the talky. Let's actually investigate.
Yeah, so that's probably a better description of it. Is I think they're weak inside of combat. Your bonus action to say advantage, I can get around by just being on the other side of them.
Yeah, they're very much well, combat's happening, right? Okay.
I think that only
I've
counts
done my job.
We're only a very melee group, though.
I think nose for trouble is quite a broken ability.
Nose for trouble.
Yeah, their first level ability.
Yeah, advantage. Yeah, I don't think it's that.
We only get advantage because we have, up until recently, we had 3 melee characters, so it's very easy for us to surround something.
But we're not. I don't think Neff's question was about the party. I think it's just about the classes in general. Is that right?
The class in general. Yeah, I think so. I mean, and it's interesting. Well, I say that. That's how I've read it. It was from a girlfriend. So I think that because I think, you know, there's obviously a lot of attention paid to class balance with D&D, and I look at and I look at the classes in this, and that's clearly something that has been thought about. The one thing I've noticed is how much and it's a bit of a weird one. I feel a little bit like at the moment we can't do as much damage at range as we can in melee.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel quite right to me, and that hints at the way the classes are built, in part, because the classes' abilities, broadly speaking, lend themselves to benefiting melee combat over range. Now, I am conscious I'm saying that, aware that on my next level up, that slightly changes. Because when I get my next level, I get a ridiculously awesome ranged weapon that's built into my arm that does epic amounts of damage.
Well, I'd have to
Would you
disagree.
say that that's tied into the economy? The reason I think
I don't know, maybe.
the starting economy is quite low, right? And we've not, as a party, we haven't. I know Adi will laugh at this. We haven't progressively earned a lot of money in the game, right? And
Loads
because
it,
of that,
fucking loads of
we
it.
haven't invested in ranged firearms. We've all started with basic pistols. I think the only person I've seen use an automatic weapon is Alex once. We've got no snipers. We're not using grenades. We're not using anything stronger than basic pistols.
You're not using grenades because hackers can blow them up. Like you
Honestly,
almost
I've
went.
not had an opportunity to throw a grenade at multiple targets, so.
It's so.
I don't. Sorry, Dave. I was just to stay on Nev's point. I don't think it leans towards melee. I think the players, not necessarily yourselves, but I think if the players lean towards melee, the mechanics work really well for melee. If they lean towards range, I think they work really well for range, which I think a very cool thing to do.
I think in the early game, it almost does, like Nathan say, lean towards melee, because you can pick up a mono katana for relatively cheap compared to a gun, and so being able to run in and slice someone is going to be a better option. But the later in levels you get, the more money you'll get, the more
Do you think
guns you can pick up.
doesn't that tie around combat encounter design? And this isn't to say what AD's doing, is we've not really fought against something we couldn't get close to. If you think, if we had Chase...
We couldn't get close to Cherry.
Yeah, and so she...
Yeah, but we kept it up, but she didn't stick around and fight us. She dropped some robots in melee, we killed them, she left. There wasn't... If we went into, let's say we went out into an open street or a jungle, instead of those gorilla monster robot-y creatures that we fought, if you'd have had 2 squads of 3 guys with long rifles with 240 range, it takes me sprinting well, it's 30, 60 a foot. That's taking me 4 rounds of dashing to even get close to them, and they can put fire at
You
me.
fought the mech in range.
I
Yeah,
think
but that was
I think
not about
to
like a
answer-
normal squad of dudes. Like,
I think to answer the question more directly for me, I think the class balance for the classes that are available is quite good, but I do feel like there are gaps in the party makeup in respect of the current classes that are available. And actually, when we did the one shot for Carbon on the charity weekend, one of the reasons I dipped into
49 hours, just saying, 49 hours. Carry on.
One of the reasons I dipped into the extra book is I think there was a couple of those gaps that were closed by the Tokyo Manhattan material, just by way of fleshing characters out a little bit more. And I'm hoping to see more of that with the Terminal Overdrive release tomorrow.
I think that's the important thing as well, is like you say, it's brand new. So the fact that you then got the additionals have started filling gaps that people will have seen in the core rulebook, which is what we're speaking about now. So yeah. Terminal Overdrive, as Dave has just put, goes live tomorrow at, did you say 1900 then?
I think it's 1900 it goes live, yeah. Well, that's when the launch event is, so it might be live shortly after.
Okay.
is anyone interested in why I pick Sparks?
No, not really.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, I am. Go on, Rob. Go on,
Go,
Rob.
Rob.
It's
You've got
exactly
4
the same.
minutes.
It's exactly the same reason James said it. Was with previous characters I've played frontline combatants, I've played get in their face, I've played decision makers that can influence combat or influence narrative strongly. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to very much play something that was very different to what I've played before, like completely other end of the scale, which is why I played the sort of pacifist, never used a gun, very much stuck to the tech. And also it's a challenge of playing something that relies on out of combat skills. That's why I went with Hacker, because I knew until I got the robot, there's not a lot I can do in combat, and I wanted to be able to try and think outside the box a little bit. What can I hack? What augments can we use? Blah 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 blah. And that is, I think I realized halfway through playing Sparks that play style doesn't cater, as we touched on earlier with Dave. Hackers, I'm a guy with a gun who can hack. No, I can be a hacker and pure. And yeah, I just want to play something completely different to what I've played and play something out of my comfort zone a little bit. The plan was always to get the little robot gun drone follow me around, and that would then be a drone pilot.
It did follow you around.
Yeah, for an hour.
18 seconds.
And yeah, the reason I went hacker was, again, I don't really play casters all that much. I've always played melee combatants, and I didn't know the system. And the system's proven to be, the combat's fine, but I've fallen into the trap a bit with other systems where I run in, I try and stab something, I hit or miss. Next round, I try and hit it. Next round, I try and hit it. It's not very engaging. Whereas something at the back, you can do quirky things, running away and hiding, trying to do stuff that isn't lethal. I thought it would just be interesting.
That's cool.
And it was, until he got hosed down in the street.
Jean's
there, Tess.
I think
Right
Tess
there.
has just clicked on that this is a Q&A and not actual.
But it was I think James,
It's
you
this
touched on,
bullshit.
you tied on it, James, as well, with it's difficult to RP something that is very much away from your character. Like the whole, you're having to constantly think, how would Alex think and how would he talk in that logical way, and how do I apply that to what I'm saying? Sparks is the same, because the situations where I'm just like, no, Jean, I don't agree with you. Like Rob doesn't agree with Jean's actions. Like, move out the way. I'm just going to run in and shoot him in the face. Or whereas Sparks wouldn't, he'd just kind of sit back and, for better or for worse, watch it crash into shit. Like, I'd love to have seen Sparks on the plane when it was crashing. That is the scene I wish he was in, just to see how he would have reacted.
What would Sparks have done?
I don't know. As I was like, right, give me the gun. I'm going to go deal with this. Like, Scotty up, load up, lock and load.
Considering you ran at Bison's men and in order to die, surely you would have been like, just by basically massaging Gene's shoulders, like, go on, get him, get him.
Go left, go left, go left.
Don't listen to the android.
I did quite enjoy the fear of guns mentality that Sparks had.
The one thing that I'm really sad we never got to see was the first time he shot somebody.
Oh mate, I'd have loved to have
That
seen
was
that.
the
It
that was
nailed me when this lot were like, "Have you ever fired a gun before?" And you were like, "Yeah, in a range." I was like, "Jesus Christ!" That was a pearl. I'll give you that.
Proficiency is very different. It's like, oh, I've got a driving license. Oh, when did you get that? Oh, 10 years ago. And have you driven a car? No.
Yeah.
I don't know what movie it's from or video game. In the back of my head, like a distant memory, there's like a character I've seen or a scene in a movie where someone shoots someone or kills someone for the first time, and like goes a little bit like all of it like kind of catatonic, and then over time like develops and character growth from that pivotal moment. I think that's kind of what
It was
drew me to
Schwarzenegger in Commando. Loads of character growth, loads of it.
What, for the jungle, right?
So it's 9:30.
The tree in the background had more character development.
Yeah, but the tree didn't have a fucking bicep and a machine gun, did it? Anyway, it's 9:30. We've done a Q&A for an hour and a half now. Unless there's anything pressing that chat would like to know. I know we were at 20 viewers. We're down to 16 at the minute. That's a fair amount to watch us Q&A about Carbon, so take advantage now. The Terminal Overdrive goes live tomorrow. We believe about 7 PM, 1900. So crack on with that. The link will be going up almost immediately when Dave pulls his finger out. So follow it. It's currently set to a preview, but that will be the same link you use to go to the live. And if you so wish to back the Kickstarter, then please do. If you wish to buy anything from the Dragon Turtle web store, please use the code WAITE, WAITE, and you'll get 10% off. So have a look at that. The Terminal Overdrive is a updated core rulebook after 18 months of basically us lot and others throwing feedback back to Dragon Turtle Games for them to tweak what we think is a really cool game. But it's also got a level 1 to 10 campaign, which is Terminal Overdrive. So I am so keen to get onto that. It is crazy. So I can't wait for that to go live. A big thank you to Dragon Turtle Games for sponsoring us. It's been great. They've sponsored us since day dot. So that's really cool. I've been speaking to Robert most of this afternoon and during this stream. So we've got some. Thank you very much, my beautiful assistant.
Who's his favourite character?
Me.
Ooh.
That's the question.
His favourite character is me. I'll find out.
Bullshit on that one.
So do I.
That'd be that one.
Surely his favourite character is the one who belongs to the player who's getting a signed edition of the book, right? I mean,
Fucking suck up. Look at him. Spends his
You
money.
can't
goes,
buy-
I've
you
got
can't
to be
buy
the
fame.
favourite. Are you a single child?
It will be after this. So so big thank you to them, and I'm looking forward to see what Robert and his crew bring out in the coming years. And I can't wait to see Carbon grow and grow and grow, and see what it's like in a few years. And I'm releasing, Cyberscript once a month, Patreon, homebrew e-magazine. So thank you very much for all that. It doesn't seem any more questions. My favourite character is Becky and her brews and hobnobs. Well played, Mel. Well played. Stop laughing. All right. Don't you enjoy them compliments?
It's not a tough question, Ash. You know, just say.
See, I've got to say, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Rob and that do with Carbon.
Yeah.
One of the things Mel said very early on was something about multi-classing. I would love to see multi-classing in Carbon. I think it could be absolutely ridiculous.
There's nothing
but-
stopping you.
There's no rules, AD.
No, it's true.
Homebrew some rules.
I'm working on it.
Well, but you can.
what would you need? Well, you could because
Just
nothing's
take the
stopping you.
first
Could,
level of
yeah.
being a Dunkirker or whatever it is.
Yeah, and just add it on.
That's your multi-class rules.
Yeah. I don't think you need to complicate it more than that with the way Carbon works. I think that would work fine.
I think you'll just stiff yourself from a purely mathematical, mechanical point of view. You'll be stiffing yourself and getting like your proficiency bonuses and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you role players go red. Don't worry about things like rules.
They've been on
I've
that
got a
shit.
45% chance of being shit in combat.
In other news, I just did something which I feel was a milestone. And for the first time in my adult life,
Rolled an
I
out
just
20.
ordered I just ordered myself a large T-shirt.
Oh my god, you skinny fuck. I've not been large since I was 6.
Nath.
Yeah, Yeah.
That was my present to myself.
You're not
You
sure
need
you
one of
need
these
My
top
Seamus
now.
Oh, right,
t-shirt.
sorry. No, nice.
You need one of those.
Nice.
Well played, Nath. Well played. For those that don't know, Nath used to be 4 men, and now he is 1.
Nathan can now fit on the screen.
Dave, you can't.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It's genuinely,
I'm not sure we
really,
can
really
do
incredible.
like pre-fat
It's-
jokes. It don't kind of work like retcon fat jokes. You know what I
to
mean?
be fair as well, actually.
Do you
in the
remember
first-
when-
It's a
In
massive
the first
achievement,
4
man.
sessions,
Really well done.
I didn't realise that was Nathan because the change was so dramatic, and it took Grace turning around and be like, "Oh, cool, it's nice to see Nathan." I was just like, "Which one's Nathan?"
Wait, what?
It took me 4 sessions to realise it was him.
Oh, jeez.
It's astounding.
There is a
Buddy, you
well
put a
played.
post up recently about your weight loss, and it's just heroic, man. Like,
Cheers. man.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
inspiration.
Skinny prick. I hate you.
Okay, so we've been nice to him this session, so we've got another 10 or 12
So when
sessions.
Larry throws him off of Mars in retaliation, he said, is anyone around? No, why? Snap.
Just do
Strength
it,
check.
Do it before he levels up.
Yeah.
So unless the players have anything to
Where's
ask,
Sean? I don't know.
unless the players have
Well, Sean, I
anything,
don't know.
unless the players have anything to add or ask, etc., or chat, which it doesn't look like, then we shall be doing one. Players, you
A
got
big thank you for everyone in the chat as well. When we're playing, having the comments and having people genuinely interested in what's going on makes the game just.
Yeah, totally.
It adds so much to a gaming experience. Like having, I can see the appeal now of the streaming world where people having that community interacting with what we're doing. It adds a really cool element to it for sure.
It's story sharing, and it's one of the most ancient things the world's ever had, and story sharing will always be a thing that I think the world needs. So
Sharing
it's
inside
great.
jokes as well, and like when the people in the chat come back and do callbacks to previous episodes and things, and like chip into the inside jokes and things, it makes it feel like a really
Tess, just rein it in, Tess. We're leaving now, just to keep your bad jokes. But yeah, what Rob said, thank you very much to the community, is truly, truly humbling. I've looked it up. And it's great to have you all watching Monday to Sunday, basically. We also, hopefully, this Sunday we'll be announcing another sponsor. So tune in for that, which I'm pretty pleased about. And it is a big thanks to Dice of the Beholder. But we'll let you know if it pans out. So, players, you alright? You good? You had a good time?
Yeah.
Nice
Yeah,
one.
great time.
Chat.
Nice to chat to everyone.
Thank you very much. You take care of yourselves. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock onwards, will be session 2 of our Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden, which is the Dungeons and Dragons Wizard of the Coast campaign setting that's just dropped. So session 1 was done last week. It was great. It's had a great response. The players are amazing. Rob, as in this Rob, is dungeon master in it. It's really cool. Come and watch me play a 6'11" Goliath rogue with a great axe, because I know how to sneak attack. And it's all right, James. I'm called Gentle Steps. All right.
Watch 80
Doesn't
freeze to
matter
death
what you
over
call
3
it.
weeks.
So come and watch that tomorrow. Saturday we got Pathfinder 2, which you'll see myself, Dungeon Mastering, and James playing in. Sunday is back
When?
round to... Oh no, not this Saturday. Not this
No,
Saturday.
I'm out for a meal, unfortunately, Saturday night. So,
So
there will be no Zek
there
for
will
that
be
one.
no Zek. So much is going to get
So,
done.
so AD will get all of that role play, all of that world building stuff that Zek just doesn't give a shit about.
Oh,
He
don't
just-
put it on Zek, you fucking bar humble. And Sunday back round to Dice of the Beholder before we start it all again next week. Thank you very much. Take care of yourselves. Hopefully COVID's not affecting you too bad. And keep rolling dice, kids. So for now, say goodbye, players.
Bye, players.
Have a good time.